Marcus, how does a kid who grew up in Ventura end up acting in LA?
You have a really supportive high school drama teacher who takes you to a acting class in Los Angeles, and you have to deal with the fact that you really suck and you have to unlearn everything you thought you knew, and you stick to it, and you take the criticism and you grow from it, and you hone your craft, and eventually your acting coach in LA introduces you to an agent who happens to be his wife, and you audition for them, and they take you on, and then you start auditioning for things. And if you're lucky, you get to read for a show created by Stephen Bochco, and they hire you, and it does well, and you impress a guy like Stephen Bochco, and he invites you to join a television series. That's how it happened for me, back in the 1600s. I don't know how it works now, but
Right. I mean, that's so just rewinding a little bit. I mean, Ventura is a beautiful town.
Yes.
It's more of like sort of a family environment.
yes, very much.
And it's what, 2 hours away from LA? Just for those who
Probably
don't
by
know.
now, traffic wise. I mean, it's normally should be an hour, but there's a lot of traffic here that it used to not be here. So I would probably say about an hour and a half.
Okay, so you were taking drama classes, and was that your plan all along to be an actor?
No, I thought I wanted to be an architect. I was
An
horrible
architect,
at
oh.
math,
Wow.
and I couldn't draw, but I was going to be an architect. I had a teacher, and her husband was an architect, and they looked very fancy to me. So I was like, oh, okay, well, to be fancy, you'll be an architect. And I was terrible at math. I didn't know you needed that. I didn't know what you needed to be an architect. I just wanted the fancy life. But my drama teacher was smart enough to say, maybe try this instead. I don't know if that architect stuff's going to work out so well with your math grades. So that's kind of how that happened.
I like how, sorry to interrupt, but I like how you said that. You didn't know what you needed to be an architect. What do you think people need to be an actor? 'Cause you drove 2 hours.
I think you need, and this probably is a little bit unpopular nowadays, I think you need talent. I think you need more than talent. I think you need drive and ambition. And especially in today's landscape, you need to have at least a base understanding of the way the business works. And you have to understand where you fit in. People look at you, casting directors and such, they're looking at your picture to set a role. And if you look like me, you're not going to look like the guy that Chris Pine is going to play. You know what I mean? So you have to understand that. You have to know where you fit, and you have to be able to navigate that in a realistic way. It doesn't mean that you can't get to where you want to go, but you do have to be able to operate within the industry as it is right now and how you fit into it right now. And I think that sort of realism mixed with talent, hard work, drive, and ambition is what brings us these people that kind of come up out of nowhere and break the molds. You know what I mean?
Right, because it didn't sound like you had a stage parent that was like on your back, like we're taking you here. Okay.
Nobody knew anything. I didn't know anything.
Right.
My drama teacher didn't know anything. I mean, I learned as I went. I mean, as a little kid, I thought movies were reality shows. I didn't know what reality shows were, but I thought that Hollywood people would find somebody really cool and then they would just follow them around, and that's what a movie was. So in a way, I'm this person that came up with reality TV before it happened.
Right. The Truman Show. Yeah, in the Truman Show. Nice.
But no, I thought that's what that was. And then I found out that, that was a job, that was an actor, and that was a job you could get. And so I remember saying to my family, yeah, I want to be an actor. And then after they got finished laughing, it was just something that was so far out of my reach, in their opinion, that became my opinion, you know. But then I got to high school, my drama teacher made it more of a real possibility in my head again. And so I decided to go for it.
Did you even have headshots at that time?
In high school?
Yeah, when they took you down to, no.
No. You know, it worked different then. You know, it's harder now because there's a lot of stuff when you're starting out you've got to do on your own. Back in the day, you know, you could find managers and agents who would actually promote and help sort of develop a career. And that's a much harder thing to find nowadays. So you end up with places like Backstage and Actors Access. And, you know, actors are now having to find ways to develop their own careers and start their own stuff. So yeah, I didn't really have pictures or anything until my agent was like, you gotta have pictures.
So then they hooked you up with someone here in Ventura to take them, or in LA?
No. Once I got to Los Angeles, everything happened in Los Angeles. You know, my agent took me to an LA photographer. Everything was there. Everything happened in LA. Back then, you had to move to one of the hubs, and you had LA or New York. And, you know, that's where the career was, that's where the industry was, that's where you needed to be. Obviously now it's different. You know, there's more hubs, first of all, and there's just more access to things because folks all over the country, all over the world are making films. They're finding each other through the internet and sites like this. So there's a lot more opportunity to start now than was then, but it's still pretty exciting to, you know, be a 16-year-old kid in Los Angeles all the time. It was pretty awesome.
How soon did you start working after that?
I think I got my first gig about a year in. I did a play at the LATC. And it was at that play that I ran into a casting director who was casting, she worked for Stephen Bochco, and they asked me to audition for Doogie Howser. And so that's how that happened. And that was fun.
Once that audition happened, how quickly and how much did your life change?
Immediately. Like immediate, because you kind of go from like, you're just a face in the crowd. You're just another picture, you know? And now, Stephen Bochco, you're like his latest find. So now everyone's really interested in who the hell you are. You know what I mean? So it's an immediate switch. And that was then, you know. Now, the way the fame celebrity machine works, I'm sure when folks get on shows nowadays, there's so much more to do with regard to, you know, publicity and all of that stuff. We did a lot, but nothing compared to what happens now.
So you moved down to LA, of course, to be on the show, or
Mm-hmm.
okay. And then are you also taking classes and doing other things in addition to be on the show, or?
I had been taking classes on a consistent basis up until I started the show. At that point, I just didn't have the time. We had like 6 a.m. calls, and we would work, you know, 12, 14-hour days, and we were working every day during the week because, you know, we were a single camera show, so it was shot similar to a feature, unlike sitcoms, which are awesome schedule-wise. It's really a lot less. But yeah, we were just going and going. So my real training really kind of kicked in when I started doing the show and working with these people who are veterans and, you know, been doing things for way longer than I had. And I think that was a real big learning process because I was there on set. You got to make it happen. You know what I mean? You get takes, but still, there's a big difference between, you know, acting on a stage in a class you know, that you paid for, and being on a set where the time is equivalent to money and you are spending money, and it's important that things get done correctly. It's a big difference. Big difference.
How was it too for you? You know, it sounds like you're under 20 at this point and you're in LA and
Right.
Ventura, just from the short time I've been up here, it's beautiful.
Right.
It's a slower paced. I'm not seeing angry drivers on the road like LA. And I'm just wondering how that was for you to go from such a nice place to like this intense town. And there's good parts of LA too, but
Exhilarating.
was it?
Because, you know, it is very sort of, it's slower and more calm and peaceful. But I was born in Philadelphia, so I was born a city kid. So I like being in the city, you know. And there's just more. There's a trade-off, you know. If you're in Los Angeles, you don't necessarily. I mean, Los Angeles is actually a pretty beautiful city in and of itself, but the access to that beauty is a lot harder than in Ventura. You want to go to the beach, you drive up to the beach, you park your car, you go to the beach. Here, you got to park and you got to find a thing, you got to pay the guy, and you got to, you know, there's a lot of stuff before you can actually just walk out onto the sand. But, you know, there's also so much more available in terms of culture and art and all of these things. Whereas in Ventura, you know, not as much.
Right. But a beautiful place here.
Gorgeous.
Gorgeous place.
Gorgeous place. And, you know, not devoid of art, but it is it's a different category.
Right. You were on the show for how long, Doogie Howser?
I was on Doogie, what did we run? 4 seasons, so I was there for 3. I did a guest spot in the first season, and then they brought me on for the second, and then we ran for 3 after.
So after the show finished, what was your game plan and what did you end up doing?
I wanted to just do more. I wanted to do film. I really wanted to do film. There weren't a lot of things available that fit what I wanted to do. So that became sort of a frustrating thing. There was also, not a lot, but a little bit of, you do a show like Doogie, and then you end up with this iconic character that Neil played. And so everybody sort of gets, for lack of a better term, Doogified. So it's like, well, we don't know if we want our movie to be about Doogie Howser because you're so known for that show. Obviously, it's not as bad, you know, for those of us that weren't Doogie. I mean, Neil, what Neil's accomplished is amazing, you know, because he successfully overcame what was an iconic child star role, you know, and it took a while for people to see past Doogie and see Neil, the talent that he is. But that was a little bit of, you know, struggle. I did a lot of stuff in TV. I did a lot of pilots that didn't go. I read for a lot of pilots that did go. But ultimately, I just kind of wanted to continue acting. I don't know that I had a game plan, per se. I just was one of those actors that depended on the representation. And it took me a while to figure out that if I wanted to get something done, that I needed to be more proactive, take matters into my own hands. And that took a while. Took a while to figure that out.
This is before sort of web series and social media and all
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Yeah, this is way before that.
Right. So you're still staying in LA.
Mhm.
And were there any points where you wanted to come back to Ventura and you said, I'm
No.
done with this, or no?
No. I always knew that I wanted to be working in this business ever since I was a little kid, even though I got laughed at. But, you know, I just knew that there had to be a way to maneuver within this industry. And I think the problem that I had as an actor was that I kept myself in a position of not knowing things. You know, I was an actor who sat by the phone and waited for the call and got upset because a call didn't come. And that's no one's fault but mine. You know what I mean? There's a great, one of my favorite shows is Taxi. Love Taxi. So great, so good. There's a line in Taxi where Alex is talking to Bobby, who's the actor in the show. And Bobby's so upset and he's so frustrated and he gave himself this amount of time to make it in New York. And Alex says to him, listen, all I know is that if you want a job, you got to go find a line to stand in. You can't just sit around complaining. And that's what I hadn't done at that time. I was still sitting around and complaining like Bobby. I had to figure out where that line was and how to go stand in it and change things. And that's how I landed on screenwriting.
During that time, what was some of the best advice, aside from that line in Taxi? Because that's excellent. Love the show. And what was some of the worst advice that you got? You don't have to tell you names, but like, what were some things that were just so cliche and it's just like, no, this is like a power speech that's not going to go anywhere. And then some stuff that was like, wow, that's really interesting.
Like in that time frame?
Yeah, when that sort of like, I mean, I want to say it's maybe more of a dip, it sounds like, and then you came out of a dip. But
definitely a dip.
Some people are full of well-intentioned advice, and it just is like, no, that's not going to work. But then others have interesting points.
You know what? The best piece of advice I got during that time was from my girlfriend at the time. And she said, you should just write a movie and then sell it to a studio. And then you can find out how it all really works. And that's why I wrote my first script. And that was a really great piece of advice. And I guess because of me thinking of it that simply, I was able to sell my first script. Maybe that's why. I don't know. I mean, it's obviously not that easy, but in my head it was. And so I wrote this thing and we got it out and done. That was probably the best piece. Worst piece? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, there were bad things said to me. They weren't necessarily advice. Like nobody ever said, go home, kid, you bother me. But I don't know if I got a piece of bad advice. But I did get that. I did get that advice, and I decided to write. And we sold that script to Columbia.
From the time that she told you that, how much time went by when you started writing that script?
Next day.
Next day, wow. This is before Starbucks or no? Starbucks
Yeah.
was around. Wow. Did the world exist before Starbucks?
There probably was Starbucks, but I
Yeah.
don't drink coffee. So
Oh, you don't? Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
can't. I'm one of those weirdos that doesn't.
So where did you start writing the script? Because there was
I
no
had a
Starbucks, so.
friend who was an aspiring writer, and he had Final Draft. So I went to him and I said, hey man, I want to write a script. And he was like, you want what? I said, just give me the Final Draft, show me how it works. He's like, that's not how Final Draft works. I was like, dude, whatever. Just, just show me how it works. So he taught me how it works. He's like, you just do that and hit the tab and then write the thing. I was like, all right. So what are you going to write? I'm like, I don't know. I just want to write a script.
Well, you didn't have an idea.
Not
It
at
was
the
like
time.
floating around, no?
No, I was like, I'm just going to write one. I've been reading them all my life. Can't be that hard.
Right.
Hard, but I just figured, just write a script, just start. Like, what am I doing? I'm sitting here, I'm staring at a phone that doesn't ring. Phone's not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. I could be sitting here a year from now, and me and my phone can be hanging out together, or I could be sitting here a year from now, and me and my phone could be hanging out with a script that I wrote. So I started writing, and I was like, I just want to figure out something that will work. And at the time, it was like you had all these it was like the teen stuff was hot. So this is like post Scream. This is like Cruel Intentions, and I Know What You Did Last Summer when the lights went off in Georgia or whatever. So I was like, all right, so they're making this stuff, and everything was in high school. So I was like, okay, I'll put something in college. All right, what's a story? They all seem to be horrors and thrillers. Okay. Oh, yeah. So I started looking at films that were really, really popular, like in the 80s. Take that story, that basic idea, set it in college now. Now I got a thing that's just a proven track record that works, but then I got this other thing, and it's new and it's fresh and it's different. And that became the first script. That became I Would Die For You. It was about a guy going to Santa Barbara, UC Santa Barbara, and had a girlfriend, and life was good, and a buddy of his in his hometown was getting married. So he goes back to his hometown for the wedding without his girlfriend because she was off doing whatever, and he runs into his ex-girlfriend from high school, and she and he end up, and he leaves. He says, it's a mistake, whatever. It's good to see you. He goes back to his life in UC Santa Barbara, turns around, there's the ex-girlfriend. Hey, how are you? What's up? Is this your girlfriend? Oh my God, she's so great. Now the girlfriend loves the ex-girlfriend, and he's in hell. And that became I Would Die For You. And Columbia bought that up. We had a good time with it. It was fun.
How long did it take you to write it?
I hate this question.
Sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. It's good. 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Wow.
Yeah.
How many drafts did you do?
Before I sold it?
Mm-hmm.
3, maybe 4. Well, it wasn't a lot. I didn't do a lot of drafts.
And are you working as an actor at this time, or you have an odd job? Or you?
No. I've now sort of moved into the whole like filmmaking scenario. So a buddy of mine named James Langtine got together and we created a production company, and we're working on films that I write and direct and star in. And we shot our first one, This Is Now, back in April, and now we're working on our second thriller coming out in October. And we've got plans for the third film we want to shoot next spring. So yeah, that's where I'm at now.
At that time, though, like, so how did you get access to pitch Columbia? Like, who did
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Oh, no problem.
Then yes, I was still sort of making the living as an actor, and by that time I had done Murder 1 and NYPD Blue, so there were like really healthy residuals floating around. I had a residual from Murder 1 year, not a year, it was like one day I just went, there was a residual, it was like $15,000 from Murder 1. I was like, whoa, I bought a car, it was great. So that was where that was at that time. And I had a friend who was a comedian, and he had a buddy who was a manager, a literary manager. And I called my comedian friend up. His name's Ahmed. I met Ahmed. And he says, hey man, I got the script, man. I think it's really good. I want to sell it. He's like, you should call Brian, dude. Brian's a manager now. You should call him up, give him your script, see what he can do. I was like, okay. So I sent it to Brian, and Brian was like, so what do you want to do? I was like, dude, I don't care. Like, I don't care if they want to turn it into Pigs on the Moon, it'll be Pigs on the Moon. I don't care. I just want to sell the thing. I want to find out how it works, because nobody will tell me how it works. This whole thing is so I can find out how everything works. He's like, all right, cool. So he sat, he read it, gave me some notes, went back and forth through the notes. And so then once he was happy with it, he decided to do like a soft, what do they call it? Not pitch. When the agents and managers, they send it out. I don't know, soft send out. I don't know. They have a name for it, I can't remember. But he sent it out to a few people as opposed to like a blanket thing, because usually, you know, you go wide with it. You send it out to all the studios and all the production companies, and you see who bites. So he was like, I'm going to send it out to people I know first, see what they think, see how it plays, and then we'll go bigger. I was like, all right, cool. So at the time, there was a production company. I cannot remember the name of the production company. They had a deal at Warner Brothers, and the executive at the production company was Channing Dungey. And Channing is actually now, I believe she's the head of drama at ABC now. But she read it, and she was like, this is good. I like this. I want to go out with it. And she did the same thing Brian did. She was like, I'm not going to go wide. I'm just going to, I got a friend. I'm going to see how it plays. So she sent it to a woman named Carrie Richmond. And Carrie was an executive at Columbia, at Sony. So she took it to Carrie. And Carrie read it. And Carrie was like, I like it. It's good. Has anybody else seen it? She's like, no, nobody's seen it, not yet. Tell you what, we're gonna make a preemptive thing. We're gonna make an option, and let's do it. Wow. And we did it, and that's how the first one happened. See, I didn't want to be vague about it. That's how it actually happened.
Right. Thank you for the detail.
That's how it actually happened. So it wasn't like, you know, there wasn't like a big sort of, what do they call it? Dos machina. It wasn't like a big thing that just sort of like landed, you know. CAA didn't just show up and go, oh, that didn't happen. It was a little manager, and he knew some folks, and those knew some folks, and then everybody loved the script. It all came back to, we like this script. And as I've continued, I've realized it all comes down to that. It all comes down to the words on these pieces of paper. We dig those, so let's see what we can do. That's what it's always come down to, in my experience. So,
Marcus, are you an employee, a freelancer, or a business owner?
I'm all of those things, actually. I am an employee of James Langtine, who is also my investor and producing partner in White Rabbit Entertainment. So I'm a business owner with him because we own that business together, and I'm a freelancer in the sense that I make my own films. So I'm all three.
Okay. Did you always think of yourself in that light?
No, not at all. Not at all. I didn't want to do any of this stuff. Are you kidding me? I just wanted to be an actor. I just wanted to show up on set and, like, you know, drink fancy water and say words. That's all I ever wanted to do. But, you know, in order to do that, sometimes you got to do some other stuff. So I got into writing because I got frustrated as an actor and I wanted to learn more about how the business worked. And I got into directing purely out of necessity. Pure necessity. I had a location that was offered to me to shoot in for free to do a short. And what the hell? It's called Bank of Venice. It's a restaurant in Venice, California, which is a town I love. And Thomas Elliott was a friend. He's the owner. He was a friend of my buddy Jason Teague. And I had asked Jason if he could ask Tom if I could shoot in Bank of Venice during their off hours. And I was putting this short together for nothing. And Jason asked Tom, and I talked to Tom, and Tom was like, when we shut down, you can shoot. And you can be there till about 5 in the morning. And you don't have to pay me. I was like, okay, great, awesome. But my director at the time wasn't able to make that time frame. She was out of town at the time, and I needed to take advantage of this opportunity. So I told her I was just going to do it and hope for the best. And it's unfortunate. I really did want to work with her. She's amazing. But it was in front of me. Yeah. I had to take it. And I took it. And that's how I shot my first short as a director. It's crazy.
Of all the scripts you've written, Which one has been the one that's the most close to you, most personal story?
A lot of them.
Okay.
I try to write from a place of myself, just because I find it's just the words end up on the page the most honest that way. This Is Now is a very personal story. If I Had Known I Was a Genius was a very personal story, and This Is Now is sort of a continuation of that. And then there's a piece I have called Unrequited, that is a very personal story as well. It's very much about finally growing up. Me finally growing up, not being a douchebag is what it is about.
Is it easier to commit to a project that's really personal, or is it in some ways almost really uncomfortable and it's easy to push something to the back burner because you're like, you know what, maybe we shouldn't put that out there, or maybe that's too much, I'm too open in this?
No, I think it's easier to go personal for me. The back burner is only reserved for things that I don't have the money to make yet. If I had the funding, I'd make them all. I'd just go right down the line and just shoot all of them. And some things aren't personal at all. Some things are just like stories, or like there's like a topical issue that, I find and I want to write toward that or whatever. But no, I'd rather put it all out there and be proud of it because it's what I wanted to do, than the opposite. I'd rather be true to what it is I want to say and the things I want to say about life and love and relationships and all of that stuff. So no, I don't shy from that.
Is it almost like therapy? Or do you feel
Completely.
like you've been in like a few years of therapy
Oh
once
my
you
God.
finish it?
The reason I haven't murdered people was because I write these scripts. It's complete. Yeah, it's totally therapy, especially Unrequited. Unrequited it's essentially the story of how I got past what was a completely unhealthy infatuation to find and fall for the woman that is now my wife.
Oh, nice.
And I had to do that. In order to do that, I had to grow up because my wife is a woman. She's not a girl. She's a great woman. And I needed to be not just some dude tooling around in Venice, being a jackass. I needed to be a guy. I need to grow up. And that's what that was about. And all of the characters in Unrequited are based on actual people from my life, without exception. So that one and This Is Now, in which all the characters are really just slices of myself. So those two are probably the most personal of the scripts that I've written to date.
How is it to see that on screen when there's like, maybe there's a major issue you're working on and you put it in a script because you believe in being honest with what you're writing, and then you see it played out, whether it's your character or...
It's interesting because I feel like when I'm writing, all of that stuff comes out and I go through the sort of turmoil of it as I'm writing. Once it's in the process of editing and I'm actually watching it, then it's just, okay, well, this is the best take and this is the cut and this is that, and this is the one that's got the most vulnerability and this is the one it's got the most emotion. Let's go here, let's go there. It's very odd. I guess I tend to compartmentalize pretty well. once I get to that point. It's the writing of it where the work comes in. Like, you sit there and you're staring at the page and you read it back. You're like, oh, I guess you did just write that. What are you gonna do? You gonna keep it on the page? You gonna hit delete? What are you gonna do? And so I just, all right, so you gotta struggle with that and just keep writing. But once it's written, for me, for my films, once it's written, that's it. Sorry, buddy. Shouldn't have, you know. People say all the time with writers, you know, it's like, I tell people all the time, I am a thief. I steal from life all the time. If you say something interesting or horrible, I will steal it. I will put it in the script. So be better around me, because I will steal. I will completely steal. And it's funny because, like, I love to take these characters that are, you know, broken, make bad decisions because of the conflict. And my wife, she's very much like, you know, she loves like bad guys versus, you know, good guy versus bad guy, good guy overcomes, you know. So I will tell her these stories and she'll just be like, these people of yours, they make horrible decisions. And I know, honey, I know. that's the point. I want to, you know, they got to make bad decisions to make good decisions. She's just like, ugh, I love you. I support you no matter what. But these characters of yours, ugh, horrible decisions. So it's kind of funny.
Well, they say with even writing villains, you know, they have reasons that seem perfectly justified to them why they do what they do, and it's not, they don't maybe think that they're bad.
Right. One of the best pieces of advice I got that served me as a writer, but it was actually acting advice. This came from Cliff Osmond, was my acting coach. And he said he had never seen a decent portrayal of Hitler because the person so vilified by society that no actor had ever played him from a true place. He was always a villain. And he said, you know who didn't think Hitler was a villain? Hitler. Hitler didn't think he was a villain at all. Hitler thought he was doing amazing things for this race of people. And he said, because of that, you don't get a real, honest portrayal. He said, you cannot judge your character. In fact, you have to think of yourself as your character's attorney.
Oh, wow.
You have to plead your case, or the case of the character, to the audience. You can't do that if you're judging the character. And I took that with acting, and I also took that into my writing as well. You know, everybody is coming from a place where they think they're doing the right thing.
Right.
You know? So I think that's really important, actually, when you're developing characters. Because the minute you judge a character, you've got a two-dimensional character. You know, you've got a flat, you know, it's like, oh, okay, I know this guy's story. He's the bad guy, or he's the good guy, whatever it is.
Even good characters do bad things and
Right.
think they're justified for it.
And that's the thing. It's the complexity of life. Right. You know, no one's all bad or all good.
Have you ever said no to a role?
Yes.
Why? I'm glad I'm amusing you. What was the reason? Or if you, without naming anyone's name, what was the reason?
There is a very, 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 very well-known and well-respected film by a very, very, very well-known and well-respected director that was brought to me while I was working on Doogie Howser. And the role was a lead role that was ultimately played by a very, 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 very famous and well-respected actor / rapper. And I read the first few pages of the script, and it was, I couldn't relate to it. It wasn't the world that I knew. It wasn't anything I felt I could bring any justice to. Listen, I grew up in Philly, yes, but I grew up in Philly listening to big band and swing music from the 30s and 40s. I grew up watching old movies like The Thin Man and people like Humphrey Bogart and Edward G. Robinson. I grew up watching Woody Allen movies. You know, this movie was set in South Central Los Angeles, and it was hardcore. And I know I have this hair, and I know I'm not the lightest cat on the planet in terms of my skin, but it did not speak to me. It just didn't speak to me. I'm a weird bird, man. I'm just a different dude. And I said no. And the film became incredibly successful, iconic. It launched the careers of just about everybody who was in it, including the directors. And I don't regret it. I'm happy that everybody sort of blew up from it. But I would have been horrible. I would have been horrible in that because it's just not my world. And I left Philly and moved to Ventura and grew up with surfers. So I'm the weirdest dreadlock black guy on the planet. The stuff I'm supposed to like, I don't like. The stuff I do like is weird. I'm just weird. I am uncastable. No one's looking for me. You know what I mean? No one's looking for the black guy with dreads who's really big, who likes Woody Allen movies and big band music. Nobody's looking for that dude. Nobody. So I create things on my own. But yes, I did say no to that film.
And I'm sorry, you said no because you felt you just couldn't resonate with the character?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's nothing, listen, when it comes to that kind of stuff, to me, you can be Laurence Olivier. You can have that type of talent. What's the age range for film Courage? Have I said a name people aren't going to know who that is?
My ego would love to think it's a wide demographic, but I think people know. Okay. Olivier, yeah.
Well,
they can look him up if they.
We get one of the greatest actors in the history of the world.
Uh-huh.
You could be that. You could have that, and you could be sitting next to a guy who grew up in Inglewood and knew a guy who is exactly like the guy in the script, and he's going to get it because there's an authenticity to that. And authenticity in a lot of ways can trump just talent. Do you know what I mean? There's just something real and tangible to it. And I don't know, this was a really hardcore film. It was about gangs, and it was about, young black men who were fighting against a system that was working against them on a consistent basis on the streets, police, all of that. And I'm not sitting here saying that I've had this like rosy peachy life and, police send me chocolates and whatnot, but I didn't live that life. And I know guys that have. And if you've lived it, there's just intrinsically, there's something that you know about it. I'm not gonna know. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense, but there's just something real about that you can't touch. When I did Doogie, my character was a gang member. He was a gang member looking to get out, and he was actually wasn't very slow at all. I mean, when they brought me back to the show, they yanked me out of that really quickly. And I think a lot of that had to do with me and who I was as they got to know me as a person. And my character, kind of got pulled away from that gang stuff as soon as possible because there was something different about having to live that life. And I have the utmost respect for people who come from that and rise and grow and create and are successful. And there is the word, transcend that life because it's important and it's needed. I'm just not that guy, you know?
How long did it take you to make that decision
Not very long.
when you were presented with the offer?
I think I read 10 pages. And I called my agent. I said, it's not something I can do.
Right away.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
You didn't even give it like 24 hours. You just said, I just know instinctively.
I mean, when you know, for me,
Yeah.
you know, when you know, you know.
Right.
I mean, I could have gone in there and wasted everybody's time. You know, I could have walked in and be like, yeah, what's up? And I'm like, I'm terrible at that stuff. I don't, you know, I don't even listen to rap music. I don't, I don't like it. I get it. I understand. I get that it's a whole, you know, like, what's the word? It's like a whole lifestyle hip hop, and it's like it's an empire in and of itself, and it's transcended and it's worldwide, and everybody. I know people that only listen to hip hop.
Right.
I couldn't tell you who is anybody. I know Nicki Minaj, but I haven't heard a song. I know who she is. I know she doesn't like Mariah Carey. I know that. I know all the beefs I've heard. Like there's a guy Drake and he doesn't like another guy, and they're angry at each other, so they rap at each other or something. I don't know the songs, but you know, I'm not dead. I'm on the Twitter. I know what's happening, but I don't. And when I do hear the songs, I don't know. It just doesn't resonate with me.
Right.
I like old school jazz and metal. Nice. And I'm a weird dude, man. I'm just a weird dude. Sorry. I can't. I just like what I like, man.
Do you have a hard time booking acting work?
No, because I'm not trying to. When I was, yes, very much so. You know, like I said, I'm uncastable. I'm not, you look at me and you get a very clear idea of what I should be doing. And then I go and ruin it by opening my mouth and I start talking, and it doesn't fit. And I get it. I'm not an easy, I'm sure my agents and managers, God bless them, you guys are awesome, but I can't be an easy person to represent as an actor, because I have really eclectic tastes that do not match what I look like. And that's part of the game. You know, like I was saying before, it's like you have to know where you fit in. And it's weird for me because I know what I look like, but I don't know a Jamaican accent. And I don't smoke weed. And I don't know an African accent. I know I'm super dark, but I've never been to Africa. I don't know how that works. I'm a guy who grew up watching Woody Allen movies, you know? And that's the thing. Sit me at a dinner table with intelligent folk, a great meal, and a bottle of wine, and we can talk philosophy all night. That's great. Like, I'm that guy. No one's looking for that guy to look like me. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not the guy. No one's, so I started creating. I would just put myself in that position, because that's what's true to me, despite what I look like.
Was that something that came, you know how people can't always see how others see them? They just know themselves. They know what they like.
Right.
Do you remember when people started saying, wow, I don't really see you in this light, or you should be more this?
Well, it was immediate.
It was immediate.
It didn't take folks long to go, what the hell's wrong with you? I was spoiled in my acting classes because my acting coach gave me like everything. I mean, I was doing scenes from Carnal Knowledge and Midnight Cowboy and The Godfather. So the material was stellar. You know what I mean? And that's what I trained on in acting class. So when I got out and I would audition, you know, for like Thug number 4, it wasn't the same caliber as Midnight Cowboy. It wasn't quite the same. And there were just nuances and things that I had learned, especially after working with Stephen Bochco and his incredible writing staff. I was lucky. I was very fortunate as a young tyke because I got to work with incredibly talented writers and incredibly talented directors and people who like were at the top of their game, and for whatever reason said, okay, you come play with us. And it's a rare find. It's a rare thing. So as I got older and I got past that, it became increasingly harder to find that again, because, you know, I don't know. I come from a different place myself, and it doesn't always sync up with how I look, and so that made the whole auditioning process a little bit difficult. Not just for me, but for my representatives too. I felt bad for them.
Marcus, how many screenplays have you written?
A lot. Films or television or both or
A total of just, yeah, whatever. Could be.
completed?
Yeah.
Probably around 50.
50, okay.
Yeah.
How many scripts have you sold?
Oh God, 3.
3, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think it is about those 3 versus the other, whatever, 47?
Well, not. It's a very good question. What is it about those 3? I think it's probably access. You know, you don't always write what folks are looking for. You don't always write what folks are looking for from you. And folks aren't always looking to read anything. You know, I mean, when we did I Would Die For You, you know, people were, the town was hungry for like, what can I put Jennifer Love Hewitt in, and what can I put Ryan Phillippe in, and like, you know, all of those people, they were hungry for that stuff. And I wrote something that fit that. And so it was like, yes, great. It was a fit, it made sense. When I did Genius, it was an independent film, much more internally generated, and we worked really hard to get funding to get that set up and made. And the production company that came on board, you know, it was part of a slate, and they were putting their slate together, and we were fortunate enough to have William Morris involved in the film, and the amazing, brilliant Cassian Elwes involved, and Whoopi Goldberg and Sharon Stone. It all made sense. But you know, the other things that I do, these films that I'm making on my own, you know, I haven't even attempted to sell them or put them out or distribute them in any way, because I want to keep them for myself so I can make them, you know. So it's a mixture of a lot of different things. There are things that I keep to myself because I want to make them myself. And then there's other things that are just out. And it's just not, no one's really into it right now. It's the nature of the beast.
So there's an ebb and flow. It sounds like there's kind of like
there's like
time
an
to
ebb.
rest. You know, I'm thinking of Simon and Garfunkel's song. I'm sorry, it's so cliche, but yeah, just
There's an ebb.
there's an ebb. Okay.
There's an ebb. Like ebb and flow sort of says like, oh, there's an ebb and then there's a flow. There's an ebb. A little bit of flow. Mostly ebb. it's mostly ebb. And it's your job to create the flow. That's what I think. You know, I think that the best thing a writer can do is to keep writing, and then figuring out where that writing fits in the marketplace, how you're going to get it out there, who you're going to take it to, because you have to be smart. You have to know what people are looking for, and that's a very difficult thing to do. You could write something great, they're just not looking for it. You know what I mean? Like television is a lot like that. Television is programmed. I was told this by a television executive. Television is programmed not by what's necessarily good, but what they need. So if you've got a really sort of poignant half-hour dramedy that's really, really good, but what they need is a silly comedy to come after Modern Family, because that has to do with business. See, that's the thing. That's the thing that's so difficult about this business, is people forget about the business part. There are companies involved in fees paid to networks for these shows. And, those commercials that you see in between the shows, they factor in because of the show. Like it's not just, this is brilliant. It's like, okay, well, is Tide cool with this too? Like, can we run Audi commercials here? Because it's all, so there's a lot of different factors that have absolutely nothing to do with your script, that go into your script going wherever it's going to go.
Are you leaning more toward television in your writing?
No. I've written a lot of television. I love television. I watch more television than I watch films.
Do you? Okay.
I do. I really do. I love television. I love Doctor Who. Oh, so good. But no, I focus in film. I focus on features. I think that's where my best work lives, is in features. And it's also the best way I think I can express myself creatively. And so what I look for is ways and means to, find funding and financing for these small little films. And I've been fortunate enough that I've been able to do them for incredibly small budgets, because I don't really have a lot of characters in my films, because they're just stories. They're just really simple stories about people and their relationships. And it shouldn't cost $20 million to tell a story about, 4 people that are trying to figure out life. And that's kind of the stuff I really dig.
So when you're writing and you're trying to keep an idea of keeping costs down, are there times when you'd be like, you know what, let me change that to one room of an apartment versus someone's office building, because you're thinking of...
I don't do that.
You don't do that, okay.
I just want to write a story. I think it can be hurtful to your story to do that, because you just want to tell a good story. Now, obviously, if you've got things at your disposal, you want to write towards those things, if you can, and still tell a good story. But I think story still has to be key, because if you've got an old abandoned warehouse that you can shoot in for nothing, that's awesome. But if you just shoot a crap story in an old abandoned warehouse because you have it for free, you're gonna have a crap movie. So you still have to create a really good story. The piece that we're working on now happens mostly in one house, but it's a thriller, and it's a psychological thriller, and there's all kinds of things that are happening, and characters are turning and changing, and you don't know who did what to who and where and why. And as I was writing it and reading it back, it just became a compelling story. And when you're doing that, a lot of times it ends up reading like a play, because you're not moving around to so many different locations. But that wasn't written to be in one location. It was written and it happened to be in one location. I would rather write a story first and then, compact for budget or whatever later, if that makes sense.
Do you think that storytelling is as prevalent and as rich as it once was?
No.
Maybe in the 80s? No? I mean,
No.
Taxi. Just think
Taxi
about
was
just the
amazing.
characters that were
There's
in that.
Taxi
I mean,
episodes that are better than most movies.
amazing.
You know what I mean? This is, you know what? Taxi probably had a profound effect on how I write. You know what I mean? Because it's just so good. God.
And everyone's so flawed in their own way, but
Right?
they're still likable.
And you don't need, but see, that's what I'm saying. Those stories, those people, they're just people in a cab garage. And you don't really need to go to a whole lot of places because the characters were so strong, Listen, there are stories out there that are fantastic. And there are people out there that are making wonderful films, both big and small. But I think that we have become a very sort of franchise motivated industry because, a lot of money is being spent on a lot of films, and that money's got to come from somewhere and it's got to get made back. And, you can't make $2 billion off of a movie that only cost $10 million. You know what I mean? So there's again, that's all business. That's all like corporate strategy and, industry stuff that some of it has to do with storytelling, some of it doesn't. But I don't know, man. I think we might be in a place where story is going to become the only affordable special effect here pretty soon. In the 40s, when the studios owned theaters, there was like this sort of cultural generational shift, and everything started to change in the 50s. And so what Hollywood was morphed into something else. And so all of these new filmmakers kind of came up out of nowhere, independent guys like, Cassavetes. And, they made these films that weren't as expensive, but they were more authentic and real, and they were gritty, and they were about characters. And we got these amazing actors that came out of that, like Dennis Hopper and Jack Nicholson. And then Hollywood saw what was happening and found ways to market it correctly and turn it into an empire, and it became great again, And then I think what's happening now is these movies they're either enormous or they're tiny. There's no sort of mid-level movie anymore. They're still out there, but they're sort of few and far between. And I think what ends up happening is you spend so much money on so much stuff and glitter, and the films, they do well, but they don't always do well enough, But the thing that's always affordable is story. Story doesn't cost a lot. You just have to have one, and you have to put it down on paper, and you have to be true to the script, and you have to film it well. And that, I think, will become a very popular commodity. A wonderful special effect for film is having a great story. So you have these filmmakers now, they don't have the money. They don't have the money for green screens and special effects and, robots flying in the sky. These guys that are coming out of everywhere, all these different little pockets in the world. They just have a passion for telling these stories and making film. And there's a lot of really great ones out there. And that's their special effect. It's story. That's how they're gaining their audience. So to me, that's the big special effect. That's the big up and coming special effect in the film world is story.
What about for serialized content? Because before it was just sitcoms or, weekly, hour-long dramas maybe. But now people are doing this binge viewing, and it just seems like it's taking over in some sense.
I think it's great. I mean, it's great. And again, I love television, so it is kind of a cool thing to be able to see an entire season, you know, in the course of an evening, you know, to watch an entire, you know, thing play out. I think it's great. But again, it's only great if the story's great, you know? I mean, for the longest time, I'm a perfect example in just how I view things personally. I did not watch The Walking Dead forever because I have a problem with zombies in stories. To me, it's a dumb, a zombie's an idiot. It's a dumb thing. It just, so you shoot it and that's it. I understand there's a lot of them, but then that just becomes redundant. So I don't see how it's a good story because zombie is not a compelling villain to me because it's a dumb nothing. So it's not a compelling villain. So we're like, oh my, you gotta see The Walking Dead. I was like, yeah, okay. So what happens? The zombies come and then they kill the zombies? Awesome, fantastic, that's good, I'll pass. And then I finally watched it. And it's an amazing story about survival and desolation. It's not about the zombies, you know? And that's why it's so good, because it's amazing stories and wonderful characters. To watch that play out over the course of a full season in a serialized drama, or to watch it unfold, you know, in a film, whether you're watching it on your phone or on an airplane or in a huge IMAX, it's great. Everybody loves a great story. You know, when people talk about moments in their lives, they talk about the story of what happened. You know, it's like, how'd you get engaged? Oh, it's a great story. That's what they tell you. They don't just go, well, here's the ring, I got engaged. Everybody's interested in the story of it. How did it happen? Like what, you know, you go over to someone's house and they've got something sitting on the bookshelf. It's like, how'd you get that? Oh, it's a great story. And that's what we love. That's what we look for. That's what we want, you know? So yeah, you know, have the spacemen fly around and shoot lasers at the Death Star or whatever. Just tell a good story while you're doing it. It's the most important special effect to me, story.
Marcus, I was going through the AFM Twitter and I just found this article that's 13 frequently used phrases that make you sound like a Hollywood rookie by Stephanie Palmer. And it's a funny article, but there's some really interesting stuff in here that I actually wouldn't know or have known that it would make someone sound like a rookie. So number 1, 13 phrases to avoid. She writes, high concept. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are. I'm just doing, you know, because I know you'll have something interesting to say. She says, if your idea is high concept, it's obvious it's not. If it's not, saying it won't help. We've had a lot of interest, which means to a decision maker, this is code for lots of people have read it, but none of them have liked it enough to get involved. With the right cast, ... Everyone knows that, basically. This is a very unique project, which means it's a red flag. If it's unique, you haven't done enough research to understand the genre. Excuse me. There's another one that's good. Oh, it's with a message. Meaning, when you're highlighting that there is a message, this means that you're focused primarily on teaching the audience a lesson instead of telling a great story. So, just your thoughts on some of these. Oh, and wait, one last one, sorry. I've been working on this film for 11 years. She says, you're committed, okay, possibly inept. So we're having fun with it, but how much truth do you hear in some of this? And
you know, I think, God bless everybody. You know, these articles, I take them all with a grain of salt because there's no road. I mean, to say, you know, these things are going to make you look like is to indicate that, okay, these are the things that you do correctly, and if you do these things correctly, then things will go the right way. And there is no correct. The only correct is like someone writing you a check. And that can happen no matter what you say. You can say, this is a really unique story, and someone can say, I agree with you, and then they write you a check, which makes that completely null and void. You can say, we've had a lot of interest. And someone can say, well, let me look at it, I'm interested. And then they write a check, which makes that saying null and void. You can't say the right thing to the wrong person. I think that's the real only thing. You can't say the right thing to the wrong person. And you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. And I think that means that if it's not gonna work for somebody, you can't make it work for somebody. You know? I don't think how you say something, if it's coming from a place of truth in you, is gonna make the difference. Like if you've got an incredible script and you've got like a really good set of whatever you're supposed to have behind it, but you use one of these phrases, someone who really is in love with your project isn't gonna say, God, I love this script and he's got so much great energy and I really wanna work with this person, but he used a rookie term. Nah, I better not, because he used a rookie term. Nobody's gonna do that. You know what I mean? Like you either find the people who are your tribe, you find the people that dig what it is that you're looking to do, or you don't. And, you know, in that point, you either decide, I'm just going to keep looking, or you throw in the towel. But I don't think it comes down to say this or that, or I don't know. Maybe it does. Who knows? I don't know. But I just think if you're coming from a real place and you're putting your best work out there, you just got to keep pushing until you find the right person, you know?
You said something a moment ago, find your tribe. As someone who may have felt like an outsider, and I only say this because I've felt like one my entire life, so how do you find your tribe? Because there's a tendency to want to glob on to,
Yeah.
and I'm not even sure that's a word, but you want to like, you know, fit in with this group because you think
Right.
then that's going to take you where you need to go, but it's not really a fit. How do
Yeah.
you know what your tribe is?
You don't. You just don't. You just do what you love, man. It's all you can do. All you can do is do what you want to do. That's how you find them. Who those people are going to be, no idea. But you just have to do what you do. If you do what they do, then you're chasing their tribe. And they're not necessarily your tribe. So you're just chasing after people. Like, you know, people pleasing, which is something I've had big problem with in the past. You can't do that. It's not good for you and it's not good for them. You're really wasting everybody's time when you're trying to please everybody. You know what I mean? I think you just have to do what you do. Do you, as the kids say.
Right.
You know?
Well, that's interesting. Why isn't it good for them? Because I can see why it wouldn't be good for the individual
Right.
trying to be the people pleaser.
Right.
Eventually you'll either, let them down and they'll get mad at you.
Right.
Or whatever. But why not for them?
Why
Why should I care about people pleasing? Why does it hurt the group that you're
why does
trying-
it hurt the group you're trying to please?
Yeah.
Because eventually you can't keep that up. It's a lie. So you're basically telling a bunch of people that they can depend on you to do what they want. It's not what you want. You're going to crack eventually. And it's going to be a waste of their time and your time.
Right.
So why do it? Who cares? You just have to love what you love. There's 7 billion people on the planet. I guarantee at least 3 of them love what you love. And that's all you really need. You just need to find 3 other people that like what you like. You're good. You're fine. And they're out there. You just have to do what you do and just follow that. The truer you can be to yourself and what you dig, the better, I think, for everybody. Because this stuff's hard. It's not easy to make movies and all of this stuff. You might as well love it, because if you're going to do hard stuff they're going to pay you tons of money for. You know what I mean? Go do hard stuff. And, I don't know. Do math or something. I don't know.
Architecture.
Architecture.
Yeah, there
Go
you
be an
go.
architect. That's hard, but you know, they'll pay you a lot of money up front. It's better. I think you just have to do this because you love it, because it's burning in you, and then you find the other people.
So let's take an example of someone trying to be a people pleaser as an actor or filmmaker, and then another way to not do that but still be dependable? Does that make sense? Sorry if I'm...
So like if you're an actor or a filmmaker or both, you want to be dependable to people you end up working with, but you don't want to be a people pleaser.
What's an example of each?
I think it's the same thing. It's just doing what you love. Because the thing is, if you love doing something, you're going to do it. People don't do anything they don't want to do, and they only do what they have to do.
Right. Well, sometimes for a paycheck.
But they have to do that.
They have to, yeah. So
you're only going to do what you have to do.
Right.
Outside of that, you're going to do anything you don't want to do. If you're doing something you don't want to do, it's because you have to do it.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
How did you catch yourself in being a people pleaser, and how did you change it?
Oh, I'm still doing it, man. I'm still trying to get over it. You know, you end up in situations where you feel like you want to work with people. You feel like you're going to gain something out of that situation. You feel like, you know, it's going to be mutually beneficial. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. And sometimes you get in there and it's just not working, you know, and you have to be able to say, okay, well, it's not working. Like, yeah. You have to take ownership of your own life. You have to take ownership of what you're going to do, because what other people are going to do, that's what they're going to do. It's got nothing to do with you. You know, it really doesn't. You can only control what you are going to do, what you're capable of, and what you love. So you might as well do the thing you love, because you know you're going to do it. And that makes you dependable. So if you're going to do it because you love it, you're going to run into the people that love the same thing. And now it's mutually beneficial because you're dependable because you both love the same thing. But if I come to you and I say, hey, come on, Karen, we're going to do this thing. It's going to be awesome. And you're like, yeah, we're going to make the best sci-fi horror thing ever. And I'm like, yeah. And then I go home, God, I hate sci-fi and horror.
I was going to say that.
I hate it. I can't stand it. But whatever. Mm-hmm. Karen, she knows some people, and it's going to be awesome. So I keep doing it. It's not going to be the best that I can do because I don't really like it. And you're going to be like, I don't think this works, and this works, and this works. And I'm like, what the hell difference does it make? It's just sci-fi horror. Who cares? You just have to kill people in space. What's the big deal? And you're going to be like, I love this. Now you tell me, now you've wasted your time, their time, everybody's upset. You know what I mean? Right. So you don't do it. You just do what you do the thing you think is awesome. Not the thing you think is awesome or the thing you think other people are going to find awesome. Do what you think is awesome. And then the people that think that thing's awesome will show up too. Everybody thought Star Wars was psycho when they first did it. Look at it now.
When you hear the phrase, and forgive me, I know this is kind of cliche, but like follow your dreams, okay. Does that have the same meaning to you now as it did when, let's say, your acting teacher drove you down to LA from Ventura or early 20s?
Yes.
It still does?
Absolutely.
Okay, why?
I think the biggest struggle is holding on to that feeling. Because when you don't know anything, it's all awesome. You know what I mean? Like, you have no idea how the business works. You just know what you want to do. And so you go and you do it and you're exuberant about it and you love it and you do it all the time and it's awesome. And then you get into the business and you start getting told no. They say no, 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 no. And so then you start going, oh, okay, well, this thing that I really love and dig, I should adjust it. I'm gonna move it. Yeah, I'll do this because then I can get that. No, I better change this thing around. And then you're not doing it because you love it. You're just trying to win. You know what I mean? I just need to win now. Once I win, everything's. And you lose sight of the passion of it. You know, when you're a kid, man, you don't think about, okay, well, if we're gonna play cops and robbers, let's see, am I the captain in the office? Or maybe I'm a lieutenant. Are we undercover? You don't think about any of that. It's cop or robber. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm the cop, you're the robber. It's fun. And I think we lose that because of the complexities of the way the industry works, and it's hard to hold on to. But yeah, I work my best to hold on to that feeling. And it's why I love writing so much, because when you're a writer, you're just all by yourself with your story, you know? And if you can block out all the white noise of people telling you what you should write, and you just write what you want to write, it's great, man. It's great. And you can see it and you can feel it. And you get out there and you're happy to deliver that script to people, and you pass it around to representatives or producers or actors or whoever you have access to try to get this thing happening. And it's the best. So yeah, you gotta keep following. You gotta keep following the dream.
Do you ever have trouble blocking out time to write?
No.
You don't?
No. I just love writing. It's just fun for me. You know, some people like to go to bars. I like a glass of wine and a little jazz, and I like to write. I know it's a difficult thing. I think it's a lot of people I've spoken with, it's daunting for them to just like stare at that blank screen. I started teaching screenwriting with a program called Page One to Done to help people, because I knew there were a lot of people that were like going to these courses and they buying these books. And it seems to me like, I could be wrong, but it seems to me like the books almost make people hesitant to write at all. And my course, the goal is to actually, by the time it's over, to have a finished screenplay. I get you writing right away. Just write. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like you don't have to have written Pulp Fiction. You know what I mean? You're not gonna write Pulp Fiction. You know, you're gonna look at what you've written and you're not gonna like it. That only means that you've got excellent taste. Like you love really great stuff. So, you know, you just have to start anything and you'll get better at it. And it's always hard to start. So I always tell people, you remember when you were a baby, right? So you were a baby and you didn't know how to walk, right? So you crawled, right? And then you finally got up on your feet and then you fell. So what'd you do?
Probably cried.
Yeah. Did you try it again?
Well, yeah, obviously.
Now you're a professional, right? You can walk. You can walk in heels, I bet, even.
Yeah,
You probably
I can.
walk in heels backward. You can dance. You can run. That's like an advanced walking technique. You know what I mean? You just kept doing it. That's all it is. You just keep doing it. You just keep doing it. And you're going to get better. It's the law of averages. You're going to get better if you keep doing something, you know?
Script idea, let's say you've seen someone or something or an idea comes into your head and you say, I want to write about that. I want to finish 100 pages.
Yes.
What's your whole process from page 1
To done.
to 99? Yeah, to done. There you go.
Gosh, this is going to sound terrible. There are things you're supposed to do as a writer that you should do. You should make an outline, you should make your character breakdowns. There's all these things that you like do. You make your cards and you plot out your story, your first and second and third. I don't do any of that. I do none of it.
That's the perfect screenwriter.
Yes.
That's one that has the folded sock drawer.
Yes,
Yep.
that's the guy who does it all correctly. I don't do any of that. I like to sit and think about the idea, and then I like to think about the character, who that woman or man is, and what they're like and what their world looks like. And then I just start to think about what the movie might look like in my head. And once I sort of start seeing the movie itself in my head, then I start writing it. I don't know how it's going to end necessarily, unless it's a thriller. If it's a thriller, I need to know how it's going to end so I can know where I got to go, if that makes sense. You know, because you always want to have that ending that people go, oh. So you think of the ending first. Like, what would be a cool, oh. And then, oh, okay, now how do I get there? So I go backward if it's a thriller. If it's not a thriller, if it's just a story about people and life and love or whatever it is, then I don't really think that much about what's going to happen. I just sort of think about the people and where they are and where I want them to be, what the world's like, what they enjoy. There's usually a lot of wine involved because I enjoy some wine. What happens is I end up writing, I think, something that's much more organic and much more, here I am a writer and I can't find a word. What is the word? Organic and what is it? What's the word when something just spontaneous?
Spontaneous. Okay.
Organic. I end up writing something that's more organic and spontaneous because I haven't sort of telegraphed it. And kind of like when you're acting, you always hear, don't play result, because you've read the entire script. So your character is on a journey. So you know what that journey is, but the character doesn't know. So you don't want to play like you know what's coming because you'll telegraph it to the audience. I find the same thing works for me as a writer. By not knowing everything when I'm writing, I'm discovering it as I'm writing. And it makes the writing process exciting for me because I'm like sitting there at the keyboard. I'm like, this is great. People are like, well, what's going to happen next? Like, I don't know. I can't wait to find out either. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a spontaneous thing. And then hopefully the training and the laws of inevitability that I try to keep focused in my head, kick in as I'm writing. And when it's done, it's a really great story. But yeah, I like to look at it as a living, breathing story that's unfolding as if I'm watching it. And that drives me toward the end. Because I feel like if I do all the outline stuff, for me, if I do all the outline stuff, I've already kind of done it already. So now it's like, now I gotta write it all. I already figured it out. So I just like to jump in and start writing.
Because you've been in front of the camera and you've seen how all of this works as an actor, do you have a better idea or do you approach it in a different way than maybe people that have never been on that side of the camera?
Probably.
For writing scripts?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because I'm looking at, I try to write things I would want to say, and I try to write things that I think actors would want to say. So in that regard, I think there's a little bit of an advantage. But, people come up to me all the time like, oh my God, I don't know how to write. I'm like, well, you don't know how to write because you just said you don't know how to write. What none of us realize is that we've all been studying film for decades. Like, how old were you when you saw your first movie?
Well, the one that stands out is probably E.T. or Kramer versus Kramer.
And so you were like, how old?
I was young.
You were young.
Yeah,
You're a young girl,
yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're a grown woman.
Yes.
So you've been watching movies for longer than it takes for a doctor to become a doctor.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But I remember Kramer versus Kramer just loving that film, seeing it and just resonating with the film. And
see, that's exactly my point. You know what you like.
Yeah.
You know why you like it. And you know why you don't like what you don't like. Right?
True.
So if you want to be a doctor, well, you go to 4 years of college, right? And then you do 4 years of med school, right? And then you do like an internship.
Right.
And you do like a residency.
Yeah.
And then you're a doctor. So what is that? Well, you got like 12 years?
It's a long time. Yeah.
Right. But you've been watching movies for longer than 12 years.
Longer than that.
Yeah. See? That's what I'm saying. I tell you that all the time. Nobody realizes that.
Yeah.
You've been watching them a lot longer. I don't necessarily think there's intricacies to the industry that people that are executives and producers and all that, they know that the audience doesn't know. But in terms of what makes a movie click, I don't think they know any better than we do.
Right.
I don't think they know. They act like they know because they got these articles about what you're supposed to say and all of that stuff. But they're all looking for the thing that's going to work. They're all looking for it, you know what I mean? And I think if you've been watching movies all that time, you just take the time to sort of focus on that and realize how much you actually know. And then you read some scripts, get your hands on some scripts. They got this thing called the internet now. Anybody can get their hands on the script now.
Right. And we're past dial-up.
Yeah, man. Yeah, exactly. Yes, there's a definite advantage of being in the business and understanding it and knowing it. But we can't talk down to the audience. They've been watching films for decades. They know what's up.
What film changed your life or role? Not that you were in, one that you saw.
One that I saw. Mm-hmm. Well, first one was Vinnie Barbarino. I wanted to be Vinnie Barbarino. I wanted to be John Travolta in Welcome Back, Kotter. I was like, oh my God, how cool is that guy? And that's how I found out that acting was actually a job. He wasn't just super cool and somebody found out and just started following him around in his real life. And that's when I thought, yeah, dude, I want to be like that. I want to be like that. So hopefully one day I can meet Vinnie Barbarino. I think John Travolta's a cool enough guy that if I say, can I meet Vinnie Barbarino? He'll give me a little Vinnie Barbarino.
And Staying Alive.
And Staying Alive
was
and all that stuff.
amazing.
But yeah, it was definitely seeing that. But movie-wise, probably the precursor to me wanting to be a filmmaker before I even understood that I wanted to be a filmmaker was seeing Crimes and Misdemeanors by Woody Allen. You know, I just thought, how cool is this? There's like 2 movies happening at one time. That's insane. Like I'd never seen that before. I was a little kid, you know, but still I was like, there's 2 movies. There's like this movie with this guy and he's in love with this girl and the girl's in love with the douchebag. And then there's this other movie where this guy's looking to kill another, he's trying to kill this, it's crazy, it's 2 movies at once, it's awesome. So I love that. And I think there's an old movie, 1937, it's called Stage Door. And it's a wonderful film about a bunch of women who live in a boarding house. They're actresses. They used to put actresses in boarding homes back in the day. And it stars Katharine Hepburn and Ginger Rogers and a dramatic Lucille Ball before she was a redhead. It's amazing. Love, 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 love that movie. It's awesome. So probably those 3 sort of changed me.
We were talking earlier about John Updike. I don't know,
Yes.
it's weird. I must have been like channeling your love for him because I was, for some reason, just watching all these videos with him yesterday, doing a bunch of work. And both John Updike and Joyce Carol Oates have both said that a writer's imagination usually comes from being more isolated as a child. And because they're alone, that they come up with these elaborate stories in their mind. Any
That would be
thoughts on
true in
that?
my case.
Okay.
That would be true in my case. I am the youngest of the youngest. My brother is 15 years older than me, and my sister's 11 years older than me. So I was all by myself making up stuff in my head all the time. So yes, I would agree with John Updike. He's John Updike. I'd probably agree with whatever he said. He's
But
John
that
Updike.
we get into that mindset all the time, and we're just always, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, I spend a lot of time alone too, so it's just always imagining things, and that's how we entertain ourselves, and we never grow out of it.
I think that's why I love writing so much. So I'm all by myself making up stories. I used to be in a place where I would be writing all day, and I'd get out of the room and I'd walk around and I would be very confused because people would be talking, but I didn't write that. I didn't write those words. They're not supposed to talk. It took me a while to sort of adjust because I get so used to creating my own world. I would walk out of my room and somebody would say, "Hey, Marcus, what's up?" I'd be like, "Why are you talking? I didn't write that. I didn't write. You're not supposed to even be here. Like, what do you?" So yeah, I would get completely lost in these people and these stories. I still do. I just can manage it better now, so I don't look at people weird because people have their own brains. They can say things that I didn't write. It's perfectly fine.
Do you feel most safe behind that computer creating that world? Because they were talking about too, just you can create whatever. Life is one, you know, sort of boring existence, but then these stories that you can create is a whole nother realm.
I think I know Woody Allen in Deconstructing Harry. You know, his character he was a writer and he would write. He couldn't function in life, but he could fix it in fiction. So I think there's definitely an element of that to what I like to do. I don't know if it's safety that I feel. I definitely look forward to getting out from behind the computer to make the movies. But it's definitely comfortable. It's definitely comfortable. I do love when I have the time and I'm not busy, you know, directing and producing and doing all the stuff intrinsic to that, and I can just write, I do love it. I do love it. It's a great place to be, to just sit and listen to music and write.
In order to survive the movie business long term, how essential is it for an actor to also write, direct, and produce like you're doing to keep that career going?
In my opinion, incredibly essential. Acting's a tough gig, man. It's hard. I have so much respect for my friends that are actors and they have representatives and they go out on those auditions, but you're waiting for somebody to pick you. That's tough. It's just tough. You know, you're waiting for somebody to pick you so that they can tell their vision. And I know people that make a lot of money and they're doing something, you know, on television or in film. They make a ton of money, but they're bored.
Really? Because they're just not enjoying the stories that are out there.
Play the same character
Yeah.
7, 8, 9, 10 years, you know? You're making a ton of money, but you're not really, you don't feel creative anymore, you know? And it's like, and then the problem with that, especially if it's in television, is you do TV and you do a show and it lasts 10 years and then it's over. And then you go off and you're like, all right, I'm free. I want to do this. And they go, no, but you're the guy from that show. So we don't want the guy from that show in our film. It's like, now you're that guy. You know, how long do you have to be that guy before people realize you're not that guy? That's a made up guy and you can do other things. It's tough. It's very, very tough. What I learned or discovered in writing was that I could create my own vision and I could take full responsibility for it. And I could create whatever I wanted to create. Now, that comes with disadvantages. You know, money is not going to come first when you do it that way. You're going to be up against different obstacles, but they're all obstacles. Like I'm either trying to find a way to make it work for a little bit of money, or I'm sitting around staring at a phone that's not ringing. They're both hard, you know, but the end game is what I think you always have to be mindful of. Like, what do you want? And I think if you really want to show your artistic nature and you really want to showcase yourself in the best light and what you do well, I think, you know, get out there and make your own stuff. And if you don't have that, if you don't feel like you have that, then, like, you know, team up with people that do and make a team. And, you know, the 3, 4, 5 of you together create something that's uniquely your own.
The tribe, finding the tribe, yeah.
Find your folks. Go find your folks. It's hard. You know, there's people out there that have been represented for years and they haven't worked. There's people out there that are brilliant and they don't have representation. It's very difficult, but anybody can post stuff on YouTube. Anybody can go on Twitter and start building an audience for themselves. And now apparently they're looking for that. I just read a thing the other day. Casting directors, they care more about your Twitter following than they do about your talent. You know, if you're an actor, that's like getting punched in the balls. You know what I mean? It's terrible. But it's a reality of how it works. So how do you do that? How do you combat that? Like, how do you become the guy that's got enough Twitter followers if you're sitting around waiting for your phone to ring and you're waiting for somebody to pick you? You got to start doing something. You got to get up and do it. It's different. It's a different world. You used to be able to, like, pitch and wait. You could go in and be like, this is great. Oh, yeah, it sounds awesome. Here's a check. Let's see how it turns out. Those days are gone. Those days are gone. You can buy a camera that can create visuals that can be put on a screen theatrically. And it'll cost you $2,000. People are out there shooting movies, man. It's about shoot and show now. Money doesn't come first now. Now you got to show what you can do. You got to go out there, you got to shoot something and make it great for nothing. And then say, here's what I did. So that you're not saying, we have a lot of interest. You want to be, you got to show people. Like, what do you do? What's your latest script? Latest script. Check out my flick. Look at the movie. Whoa. Yeah. Now, what do you think I could do if I had 10 grand more, 50 grand more, 100 grand more? Shoot and show.
What have you learned is the biggest, some of the biggest budget wasters? Because you're talking about some of the budgets you were working with, and where have you kind of reined back?
My budgets are so tiny. There really is not a whole lot to waste on mine. But I think the hardest thing is time, managing the time. Because when you're doing something for so little, everybody's got to love it. It's got to be about passion, but you also can't sit around wasting your time. You can't waste their time. People are coming to you and they're bringing you great stuff so that you can make this movie. You owe it to them to know what the hell you're doing. At least know what the hell you want. You can't sit around and be like, I don't know, should I shoot this? I don't. Prepare. Know what you want, Woody Allen says, if you're the writer of the story, you already know what you want the audience to see. So, as a director, I try to figure that out, know what it is. When people come in, we hit the ground running. I'm not here to waste your time. I'm here to facilitate you having fun and having your passion get displayed. So let's get to it. Let's make it happen. Let's do it. And then you can go home and pet your cat, do whatever you do. We'll come back, we'll do it again later. But yeah, timing, really timing. Giving people the time to do what they do best, but not wasting time trying to figure out how it's going to do all that work ahead of time.
What's been the most helpful resource or like a creative tool? Is there a book, an annual event, a class that stands out as like either you continually turn to it or that was really a turning point, aside from the acting class, of course, that really sounds like they just believed in you and
Yeah, it was really good. The films and documentaries that I've seen from Woody Allen, episodes of Taxi, the music of Artie Shaw, Benny Goodman, Glenn Miller, and Roy Eldridge, Red Wine, and my production team, Vernita Irvin and Brooks Kephart and James Langtine, and my friend Drew Mouser, who kept yelling at me to direct and shut up about complaining, and my wife Isis. Those were the best tools that I had, and I turned to them time and time again. There's a 2-part documentary on Woody Allen. I probably watch it 3 or 4 times a month.
Really?
I search my DVR for old episodes of Taxi to get inspiration. I listen to that good old stuff because it reminds me of my dad and all the stuff that he dug, and those sensibilities stick with me. And my buddy, my great friend Alicia Minshew, who I write for very much. She's a great resource. She's a wonderful actress, and she's a huge part of my support system. So yeah, those are the things that I turn to all the time. She reads just about everything I write, and yeah, I just keep it moving. I'm always writing.
Since not everybody has a support system, or maybe it's a well-intentioned support system, but it doesn't work.
Right.
So where would they find their own ways to plug into something? If they don't want to glob onto a group, they don't want to be sort of parasitic in that way, but then they want to find what they love. How do they know?
It's tough, man. That's a tough question. How do you find what you love?
And how do you be your own support system?
I think you be your own support system by figuring out what you love. I think you find what you love by opening yourself up and giving yourself permission to love whatever you want to love. A lot of times it's hard because people don't really think they deserve something that's their own, or they feel like other people need to come first, or they feel like people are depending on them, so they have to be all these other things. But the thing is, you're you. You're either a man or a woman. And in order for you to be all these other things, you got to feed that man or that woman first. And you don't necessarily need to know exactly what it is. You just have to allow yourself the permission to be open to it. Who knows what it could be? It could be anything. But give yourself permission to let it come, you know? And when it does come and you feel it, man, grab onto it, make it your own. Don't let anybody tell you you're stupid. Don't let anybody tell you you're not supposed to. Don't let anybody tell you that's not how it's done. Nobody knows what they're talking about. Nobody knows what they're talking about. Everybody's just trying to figure out how to do it. You know what I mean? Your way isn't any better or any worse than anybody else's. It's just yours. So just find your stuff, man, and love it. Who cares? As long as you do what you do and you got a smile on your face, who cares what anybody else thinks? Who cares? Doesn't matter. Just do what you love. It'll come. You allow it to come, it'll come. That's what I think anyway. Yeah. Brownies. Brownies are always good. They help.